everyone, it's Carrah and welcome back to my channel. I just want to start off saying I am in my bed right now because of the lighting for this video. My usual workspace didn't do the artwork justice that I have done, so I moved to my bed, and I'm sorry if the camera's shaky at all, but that's what's going on. But anyway, I have a marker review here for you guys today, and you might be thinking, wait, Carrah, you've reviewed Ohuhus in the past, why are you reviewing them again? Well, these are actually different Ohuhu markers. These are their new water-based markers, which I didn't know about until I looked at the Amazon listing for them. But I got excited about these because these are 60 colors and you can get them for about $22 on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description down below. And they have a brush nib and a fineliner nib. And frankly, those are my two favorite things to work with, so if you're combining them in a marker, of course I'm going to be excited. So I wanted to get in and review these for you. And I already have two artworks done, and I don't know if I'm going to put a speed coloring in or not because the video didn't turn out too well. Because of the lighting, it didn't do the artwork any justice, but we'll see. If I do, it'll be at the end of the video. Anyway, I'm going to get into reviewing everything for you. The first thing I want to talk about is actually the packaging of this container. I really love this packaging, mainly because it's a nice sturdy material. For the alcohol-based Ohuhu markers with bullet and chisel nib, I didn't like the bag they came in. They came in this fabric bag, and it easily folded over itself if you were pulling out a bunch of markers, and I'm personally the type of artist that takes out a bunch of markers when I am working on a project. So when I go to grab more markers later on, the fabric was just kind of folding over itself, and I had to like move it out of the way. And putting the markers back into the case, I didn't enjoy it. But the packaging on this, I really like. I mean, the artwork on it's really cute, and then it has the brand, and it also says what all comes in it. So that's just my little ranting, or not ranting, but my little input about the packaging. Now to talk about the markers. When you first open the container, you have all the markers inside of it that look like this. And I have mine ordered from like pinks and reds down to purples and browns and blacks and stuff. I like my markers to be rainbow order. That's just what I like. It makes my life a little bit easier. So yeah. And the reason why the tips are all different sizes, or I shouldn't say all, they're two different sizes. You have the smaller ones, which are the fine liners, and then you have the thicker ones, which are the brush nibs. And the reason for that is because the markers cannot fit all the same direction. You can't have all the brush tips facing up or down and all the fine liners facing up or down. Anyways, as far as the tips themselves, this is the brush tip. This is my favorite type of marker design. And then the fine liner, which is another one of my favorites, or else I wouldn't have my lines in my work. And this is a 0.4 tip. Now I just want to show you how the markers work and things that I've noticed about the markers, as well as my favorite blending method. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this blue color, and I am going to do a simple back and forth because that's how a lot of people color. And the one thing that you will notice about these that other water-based markers usually fail to do is it comes out with this nice smooth tone, which I can show you up close. So, this would focus, yeah. Usually it's a lot streakier than that, but these are pretty nice water-based markers. So, they don't come out streaky at all. Now, if only my camera would focus again. No. Okay. Struggles of using a phone. Well, I guess it would happen with any camera. The next thing I want to do is show you how I personally like to blend. And when it comes to blending, I only need 2 markers because for this type of marker, I don't want to do too many layers. If you do too many layers, it has a tendency to tear the paper, even on watercolor paper, because I have some Tombow markers that are also water-based, and they tear my watercolor paper, and we're talking high-quality watercolor. Like, 20 pages for, what, $30? Yeah, it's expensive. So, I only like to use 2 markers to prevent tearing, but the way that I do this without having to overlap a couple of times is I first uncap both markers, and then I touch the nibs together so that the dark color kind of runs into the lighter color. In this case, I have purple and pink. I'm not going to touch those together too much so that I don't have to worry about it blending too far. But by doing this, you can have a nice little gradient. And it's best to use a circular motion so that the colors aren't streaky, because if you try doing this back and forth just like this, it will look streaky with colors blending together. But as you can see, it fades from this purple down to a nice pink shade, and it's a really easy technique. The next thing I want to show is actually kind of cool. I found this out while just testing. I was playing around a little bit with the markers over here, and I found this really interesting thing. If you like using alcohol-based markers, this might be useful for you. The lining part of the marker, well, marker pen, same thing. Let's just say I write the word hello or hey, because I'm going to test with 2 different types of markers. And we'll do a few lines as well. Over on the left, you may have noticed a Copic marker and a Sharpie. These are 2 materials that I really like using. I like blending Sharpies together, and I like blending my Copics, of course. So the first one I'm going to show is the Copic markers, and I'm really hoping it works because it worked really well before. But I have this nice light color here. And if I just go over that line work, I was honestly like so impressed with this when I first saw it. It's not smearing at all. And frankly, this could be useful for line work where I just want to color with Copics or alcohol-based markers. I can go over something several times without it budging. Same thing with the Sharpies. I can just go over that ink several times. I mean, layer 3, still no smudging. And then, of course, the lines, no smudging. No matter what direction I do it, I can do it horizontal and vertical, and there's no smudging. And for evidence of that, again, I will show you a close-up. So that's pretty cool in my opinion. And that makes the fine liners extremely useful for alcohol-based artists, like if you like working with alcohol markers. It's insane. With these swatches, I want to start talking about some of the negatives I had about the markers, because the swatches kind of correspond to the negatives in a little sense. But the first negative I have is that these are water-based. Water-based markers have a tendency to tear the paper the more layers you add, while alcohol-based markers, you can layer as much as you want, but you have the risk of bleeding through several pages of your sketchbook, which I have done far too many times. But I've never had a fear of tearing the page. I can layer 8, 10, 12 plus markers, like alcohol-based markers, over top of each other without the fear of tearing. With these, if you go 3 layers, it starts tearing the page a little bit. Even when I was doing the swatches, I had a few places got extra dark and they were on the verge of tearing. Now, the next negative I have is the caps not really matching the colors very well. For example, if I can get this marker out of the container, there's this tan looking colored one, but that equates to, I believe it was this one, and that's another negative I have. I believe it was this one or this one. but it's more of a tan color, so I thought it would be a brown, but in reality, it's more of a yellow gold type of color. The other issue I had, which you just experienced me having issues with, these have no color names or codes on them, so if you do a swatch thing like this, it's almost useless because you don't know which marker goes to what. Pretty much. I mean, here, I'll give an example because I did do one drawing. This was a swatch page I had to use for one of my drawings that I did with them because I didn't know what color I was using. And I think that these markers could be so much better if there was some sort of naming or numbering system on them. Because as you can see, there's nothing on the cap, there's nothing on the barrel, it just says that it's brush and fineliner. It would just be so much easier if they had color names. The next thing is the line art. Now, the line art works really, really well with alcohol-based markers. However, if you try to do line art with these, or, I'm going to start with a line here. I tried doing line art with these and then coloring over them with the same markers. You will get some smearing going on if you do several layers. If you do one, you get a little bit of smearing, but if you do multiple layers, you get a ton of smearing. You can see that the black bled into the yellow there. So I think that's about it for all of my negatives, but now I want to get into the positives. And the positives kind of show with this as well, so I'm going to keep it up. One, the vibrancy. The colors are absolutely beautiful. I love them. I just realized one negative I missed. I'm sorry, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. One other negative is there's not really any peachy or light skin tones. I suppose you could get by with this one up here. I don't remember which marker it was, though. Yay. The only other skin tones are these browns over here, which this and this one, these get on the verge of being a little too dark for the black that's available in the set. You almost need a darker black in order to see over it. This one I had to use for a skin tone. These two on the verge of being almost too dark to make out any facial features or line art, which is unfortunate. But overall, there's really only those options for skin tones unless you want to create an alien. Anyway, now to get on to the positives. I did say the vibrancy was fantastic. The next thing is that for water-based markers, they are not really that streaky, and I think I mentioned this earlier. Yeah, they aren't really streaky. They're pretty solid in my opinion, which is impressive. The next thing, I've already mentioned the brush nib and fineliner. Those two are just a great combination in my opinion. I don't know how many other people will agree with it, but that's just me. The alcohol-based ink doesn't smear. These are really, really cheap. They're 36 cents per marker. And I think I also stated earlier on, you can get the full set of 60 for about $22 off of Amazon. And then the next thing, which is really cool, which I can show with this page actually, I'm going to flip it over to the back. And there's really no bleeding through. Actually, there is no bleeding through. Just evidence that that's the same page. This is one of the perks that water-based markers have over alcohol-based. So if you don't want to ruin your pages later on in the sketchbook, I would recommend watercolor or water-based markers. Now, I want to show you two of the artworks I made with them and talk about my experiences with the markers. Here was my first attempt at coloring with the markers, and I really like this character. I think she turned out super cute, except for I wish there was a little bit more shading involved, but I panicked and rushed it, and it didn't turn out to be one of my best. But the character design itself is really cute, and I might actually draw this character again in the future. The issues I had, though, was one, something I can't really control with water-based markers, so it's not really on the marker, it's more me. I just can't layer as much as I would like to. or it's my main style in my art. I like to add a lot of layers. I'm going to use my contest entry for Jazza as an example. Lots of layering, lots of shading, lots of contrast. I like doing stuff like that. The other issue I had was, again, with the skin colors, because, as I stated earlier, there's only really those 3 browns unless you want to go into creating an alien type of a character. Which, I mean, that's always optional. You can totally do that. But I like creating more realistic characters, personally. So the browns are almost way too dark to the point where if I want to do another dark skin character, which I totally would, I would have to use a lighter line art. For my piece here, I decided to use black. And because I used black, I had to go in with Prismacolored pencils just to kind of distinguish the facial features and line work away from the actual skin color. Or else it would just kind of be a muddied looking mess, unfortunately. So that was my biggest issue I had. And Ohuhu, I know you're watching this because you support me and my artwork. If you make more markers for this set of the water-based markers, I would love to see a wide variety of skin tones, skin colors. The other thing I would like to see is a numbering and name system. So those are my 2 biggest things that I want from these markers. I think they're great, and I probably will keep using them. They are, as I said earlier, my favorite water-based marker. I do want to show one more artwork, and then I will be closing off the video. Here is attempt number 2 at using the markers, and this is just a little whimsical space-themed piece because space and galaxy stuff is my default. I figured I would do something I was a little bit more comfortable with, sort of. This isn't usually how I like to do galaxies, but I thought it would be kind of fun, and it would allow me to do this cool blending technique with a marker that I showed earlier. So this kind of shows how they work together. I really, really love how the Earth planet came out. That came out really nice. The other ones were a little bit more basic. The white pen works surprisingly well over water-based markers, or at least these ones. Usually with previous water-based markers, my white pens don't like to show up, or they just start blending in with the ink. So for them to actually show up and be somewhat opaque on this, I'm pretty happy. Anyway, that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It might be kind of lengthy. I'm sorry the speed art is not going to be in this video because it's just way too long already. And I don't want to, bore you guys to death. So, no speed art in this video. If you are interested in it, though, let me know in the comments down below and I can post it at a later time. If you enjoy my art and you are not already, subscribe to my channel. I will be doing more reviews in the future. And if you like this video, then feel free to leave a like on it. As I said earlier as well, I keep saying that in this video, but it's true. I will be leaving a link down below to the Amazon shop for these markers, as well as the actual Ohuhu website. If they are available on there, I will leave a link down below as well. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!